to our Justice Education series webinar. I am thrilled to be here with you to talk about growing up in the shadow of the carceral state. And before we dive into this topic, um, let me take a moment to introduce myself and our organization and our panelists. I am Chiara Benetolo. I am the Executive Director of the Putkamer Center for Educational Justice, the Research and Strategy Division of the Petey Greene Program. For those of you who don't know us, we are a national organization with offices across the northeastern US that works to provide tutoring and really holistic educational support services to students who are incarcerated or formerly incarcerated. We have been funded in 2008, so we are almost 20-year-old now. And over the past years, we have served 20,000 students through what is really a very simple model. We recruit, we train, and we coach and manage volunteers who are mostly undergraduate and graduate students from our partner colleges and universities, as well as professionals, retired educators who are really joined by the mission to support people who are impacted by the criminal legal system to reach their educational goals. And in fact, we as an organization have a double mission. On the one hand, supporting incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people. On the other hand, supporting all of you, getting our volunteers and the broader public more aware and of what happens inside our prisons and jails and in reentry settings, so that we can help build the next generation of leaders who will reimagine our criminal legal system. And this is also where the Putkamer Center for Educational Justice comes in. At the center, we work to combine research and pilot program development and implementation to identify solutions that are evidence-based and that lead to measurable impact on confidence of our system-impacted students. This webinar in particular is hosted in partnership with Incarceration Nations, which is a wonderful network of formerly incarcerated activists across the world. And as you'll see here, we have a few panelists that join us from beyond the US, and I'll introduce them in a minute. But for to get us started, I want to contextualize what we are talking about. So we are talking about the impact of the carceral state on children and youth, whether they are behind bars or whether they are the children of those who are incarcerated. And according to UNICEF, there are almost 250,000 children and youth who are incarcerated, including more than 20,000 just in North America. And I couldn't really find good statistics on how many children of incarcerated parents there are across the world. Many, because we know that many incarcerated people have children, of course. And the two ways of being impacted by the carceral state are certainly very different, but as we will see and discuss, also have a lot in common and really go to show how deep the structure of the carceral state penetrates in the fabric of our society. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists. They will tell you much more about themselves and their work. But I'll tell you something about them to start. And I'm going to start with Franco Ruzdekura, who was once incarcerated himself, and in 2017, while incarcerated, he began to participate in cultural workshops run by an organization called Volver Akasa. Through this experience, he went through some really transformative moments, like reconnecting with his family through virtual reality technology, and finally decided to pursue a degree through a prison through a college in prison program. And once he was released in 2024, he joined the same Volver Casa organization that he experienced while behind bar as an educator, and now leads workshops really in prison and juvenile justice centers across Chile. Our next panelist is Lerato Cosi from South Africa, is a passionate youth development practitioner with 27 years of experience in community work, currently serving as the coach development manager at Wave for Change. And before that, he was a program coordinator at Justice Desk Africa, where he empowered young men to become positive role models and actively challenge toxic masculinity and promote justice for all. Lerato is also the founder of CFAFAMA Youth Movement, which is a youth-led NGO focused on mental health, sports, and leadership development in underserved communities. And Lerato and Franco are part of Incarceration Nations Network, and they are part of their Global Freedom Fellows, and of a new and wonderful consulting agency that Incarceration Nations is creating. I'm really excited to have them with us. But no less important are our US-based panelists. Nicole Loonstyn, who is the outreach coordinator for Building Bonds Through Books, an organization that, like we hear, will provide children's books about parental incarceration to children with incarcerated parents. She has been with this organization since its inception 3.5 years ago. And her work is inspired by the experience of having one of her loved ones enter the carceral system. In addition to working at Building Bonds Through Book, Nicole is getting her master's degree in criminology and criminal justice at Northeastern University, working full-time at a reentry space in Massachusetts, and beginning as a Petey Greene tutor for incarcerated youth in Boston. So I don't know how she found time to be in this webinar, but we are very grateful that she did. And last but certainly not least, we have Megan Comfort, who is a senior fellow in RTI's International Public Health Research and Social Policy Department. She is a leading sociologist whose work centers on the understanding pathways to promote justice, equity, and well-being for people impacted by the criminal legal system and their loved ones. She is the author of Doing Time Together, Love and Family in the Shadow of the Prison, and the co-author of Holding On, A Family and Fatherhood During Incarceration and Reentry. She believes in strengthening the policy and programmatic relevance of research, and she is a member of the Scholar Strategy Network and an advisory board member of Uncommon Law. So you can see a wonderful list of panelists that are with us today. that can speak of the both sides of the issue that we are discussing. People who are youth and incarcerated themselves, as well as people who are young and have a parent who is incarcerated. And we also know that sometimes those two categories end up overlapping, unfortunately. So I'll get us started with some questions. I'll ask some questions to our panelists, and then we will make sure that we have a we leave time for I'm sorry, for Q&A at the end. Just a quick technical note for our panelists. If my colleagues at Petey Greene can put in the chat instructions to tune into the interpretation channel, that would be wonderful. Thank you. But I'm going to start with some questions for Lerato, and who is so who has such a deep understanding of the impact of incarceration on youth. Because of course, we often talk about how being incarcerated has incredibly negative effects on adults in terms of mental and physical health, stigma, reduced opportunities. But what about the impact of incarceration on young people?
Hi, everyone. I trust that you can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. May you please repeat the question because you are really breaking from my side. I can't hear you clear. Thank you. Or you can write it down as well. Thanks.
Yes. Um, my question is, what is the impact of incarceration on young people?
Thank you. Thank you for giving me that opportunity again. And evening, everyone. Again, my name is still Lerato, and my surname is Kosi, and I'm from South Africa, in a township called Kailicha, which is the largest township in South Africa. And most of the dwellers is black people. Um, so I think for me, what I've been trying to do, I've been trying to research so that I can find the big words as we are about to talk about this, engage in this dialogue. But then I discovered that I don't have to do that because I'll be talking about a live experience, as you have already stated. I was arrested when I was 18 years old for theft and housebreaking. And I think that was the most darkest days of my life because I was carrying a lot. I was a young person who grew up in what we call underserved communities where you are exposed to poverty, crime, drugs, and violence. And your means of surviving, it's either you join them or you die. I made a vow as I was growing that actually these are things that I will never do because of my poor condition. Just to come straight to your question, when I got arrested, there was a lot that I regretted. Even though incarceration became an environment where I was able to transform my life, but it was a conscious decision. I was not in an environment where I was actually treated in a way that I could transform and change and become a better person. Instead, I was actually being trained on how to become a schoolie. And when I say a schoolie in South Africa, schoolie is like a thug, is someone who does criminal activities. You need to understand that when you go to bed, when you wake up, when you go to bed, you might not wake up. um, it's like when you are sleeping, you must sleep with the one eye open because your life is at risk. In South Africa, I was in Paulsmo, and I spent 9 months without being sentenced. And at the end of the day, I was found not guilty. But then the sufferation and the struggle that I had to go through, I, 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 I went deep into myself in a place of feeling less. I fear less so that I can survive. I was asked every day who I was, even though I knew who I am. But in order for me to belong, to have that sense of belonging within prison, I needed to know who I am as a gang member. And I refused. I refused because I was done. I was tired. Secondly, I think for me, what I needed, not only in prison, what I needed into my society from my family is someone to listen to me as a young person, what I needed to say. And when I felt and I heard that no one was listening to me, that boiled anger to me. And I think you, as you might have read my biography, I tasted apartheid. I know that I'm black in South Africa. I know that because I'm black, I'm gonna be limited to resources. And our mission with my friends were, let's steal back what has been taken from our parents. Hence, we were not doing our criminal activities within our society, but we will go into what so-called white area. So it had a huge impact to me because it almost changed my identity. It almost changed who I was if I could have succumbed to what was happening. In Portsmouth, you need to know, or in any prisoner, I don't know about America and other places, but in South Africa, if you are being arrested, you can turn a wife, you can become a wife and wash clothes and cook and find food for others. You might be arrested for a minor case, but you might end up being sentenced to 10 years because maybe you have stabbed someone. And those are the duties that you are eligible to do. And if you don't do, you'll die. I'm not sure if I've captured your answer, but I think that's it from my side for now. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing your powerful story. And in the meantime, I want to our panelist from Jamaica was able to join us, and I'm incredibly happy and grateful to have her here, despite the very challenging conditions on the ground in Jamaica. So I'm going to take a moment to introduce Catriona Clark. She is from Stand Up from Jamaica. She is the project coordinator and administrator at Stand Up for Jamaica, which is a leading charitable organization dedicated to advocating for and supporting incarcerated, ex-incarcerated, and other marginalized populations across Jamaica. Beyond her administrative responsibilities, she serves as the Principles of Accounts teacher in correctional centers, where she empowers individuals with essential financial skills to support their rehabilitation journeys. So thank you so much for joining us, Catriona. And let us go back to the Larator's response and to the conversation that we started to have about the impact of incarceration on young people. I was really struck by your emphasis on how there's an impact on people's identity in addition to all the practical consequences that we heard about. Um, so, but we also know from having read your bios and from knowing your work that there are powerful programs that we can bring to carceral facilities and that can help break that cycle and change those dynamics. So I would love to hear from Lerato and from Franco if we have been able to, if you can hear the interpretation. What educational or what enrichment programs are effective for young children who are and for youth who are incarcerated? What do you do? What have you found that is successful? Lerato, do you want to go first? Yeah.
Okay. Oh, if your question is, what are the programs that work effectively when we working with young people, so in order for them to transform? Wow. I think I'm laughing again because I'm the product of the programs. Um, I volunteered. I worked for free. I throwed myself out there because I needed to change. It comes with, I think for me, when I was in an isolation room, I found my purpose, which was I'm Lerato that is allowed to make mistakes in life. But what do I do after I've gone through a challenge? I reflect and I grow beyond that. Um, so when I came back from incarceration, firstly there was obvious the judgments within my society, in my community, and here I was, and I was telling myself now. You remember now when I got arrested, I was still doing drugs. I was still a criminal. So when I was in isolation room, I realized and I knew that even if I go back home, if I'm being given a second chance, drugs will be still there, crime will be still there, hands will be still there. How do I stand true to myself? Um, and I like the question because when I was in isolation room, I said I will never ever. I made a vow to say I will never ever allow my young sisters and brothers to go through what I've went through, knowing that each and every child that comes from underserved communities, we all facing the same challenges. We might face them differently and maybe generation to generation, but it's still the same. It's poverty, not having access to resources and opportunities. In South Africa, you'll go to school, but then you'll still sit at home even if you have a degree or masters. You will be still unemployed. Anyway, so when I came back, and again, this is for me, coming from an environment where everything is busy, every day you need to understand and know how are you going to survive, how are you going to put bread on the table. I needed a place of stillness, quietness, silence, so that I can listen to my heartbeat, so that I can listen to my inner voice, my soul, my who am I. And it's something that a young person that grows up in the townships of Cape Town is not exposed to because we are far away from the mountains. We are far away from even accessing a park. That those they don't exist in our communities. We create balls out of a plastic and we will play on the road when there's car coming and driving. That is a young. I needed a place of stillness so that I can listen to myself in order for me to make sense to myself, not to any other person, not to try to impress. Because how many times I have surrendered my identity in order for me to belong. So I was exposed in a program they were using what they call a circle of courage. And apparently, this was a research that was done by a man called Mr. Broken Leg, where he was meant to present. I think it was in Chicago, on how we can work with young people effectively, and it speaks about belonging, belonging, mastery, independence, and generosity. And if one of those quadram whatsoever it's been broken, you are not a whole child. In South Africa, in the township of South Africa, many young people are raised by single parents. The circle of courage is broken. The sense of belonging is not whole. What we do when we seek for belonging, we go and join gangs because that is where we feel the sense of belonging, because there you are being honored, you are being recognized. The biggest mistake that society does is to give young people names. Gangsters, you are labeling them, you are even making them even angry. So I will go and stand in that corner if I want to work with young people, because that is their environment, that is their turf. I will go and stand there, but I will bring a different dialogue. I'll bring a different dialogue. I think I'm gonna give it to my colleague for now, and then I might talk about other programs later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That is really really helpful to understand this perspective. That is it's less about the practice of what you do, and it's more about creating that sense of belonging and however you do that. it's going to work. You could do it through education. You could do it through sports. I'm sure there are a thousand different ways, but the important thing is restoring, creating a different type of community for people. Um, I want to go to Franco for a moment before we come back to you, Lerato. Franco, if you can talk to us. I think we're still figuring out interpretation. Oh,
Sí,
got
escucho.
it.
De los programas en los que yo trabajo, ok, perfecto. ¿Me escuchan todos bien? ¿Tengo que ir pausando por el tema de la traducción o solamente hablo? Perfecto. Bueno, primero que nada, mi nombre es Franco. Estoy contento de verlos. Estoy feliz de ver a Loreto, ver a Catrian, que son personas que conozco en Sudáfrica. Bueno, yo soy de Chile, tengo 31 años de edad y
I'm sorry, I'm gonna interject for 1 second to say that if people want to hear the translation as well, you need to be tuned into the Spanish channel. So at the bottom, click on the Spanish channel because I think otherwise you won't hear our interpreter. Please continue. I can if I tune into the Spanish channel. Does that Megan and Nicole, does that work for you as well?
I can hear in the Spanish channel.
Yes. So for the audience as well, if you can please go to the bottom of the Zoom webinar, there is a little map of the world. You click on there and you tune into the Spanish channel, you will hear the interpretation. Once we are done talking with Franco, you need to switch to go back to original audio interpretation off, otherwise you will not hear us. Thank you for your patience with those. Does comes with the territory when you want to have such a rich panel of people joining the call from across the world.
¿hablo? ¿Puedo continuar? Ah, perfecto. Bueno, yo soy una persona que desde los 14 años pasó por contextos de encierro. A mis 14 años fui condenado a 7 años por, y después como cuando cumplí la mayoría de edad, estuve también por un proceso de encierro, un proceso largo igual. Yo tengo 31 años y he pasado 14 años de mi vida encarcelado. Eh, en este proceso, de encarcelamiento, yo conocí un programa que se llama Volver a Casa, que es una organización. Bueno, esta organización a mí me abrió las puertas en el medio libre y me dio la oportunidad de trabajar por primera vez en mi vida. Porque aquí en Chile, el tener la oportunidad de trabajar después de pasar por un contexto de encierro es casi imposible. Eh, Bueno, yo trabajo en esta organización que se llama Volver a Casa. Yo soy profe de esta organización y bueno, trabajo en centros de menores, trabajo en distintas cárceles a nivel nacional de Chile. nosotros trabajamos con realidad virtual, ¿ya? Nosotros trabajamos con estos lentes de realidad virtual y nosotros como profesores, a raíz de varios talleres que hacemos con las personas que están privadas de libertad, vamos conociendo a su familia. Nosotros vamos a las casas de la familia, de los familiares de las personas que están privadas de libertad y grabamos con una cámara 360, grabamos distintas dinámicas de las familias, ya sea cocinando o yendo a buscar a una niña a la escuela, a sus hijas, todo. Y nosotros después le llevamos esa experiencia a las chicas o a los compañeros o a los menores de edad a raíz de la realidad virtual. Nosotros lo hacemos volver a la casa, volver al medio libre a raíz de la realidad virtual. ¿Se entiende? Nosotros Nosotros tenemos casos de compañeras que están en contextos de encierro, la cual no ven a sus hijos durante 4 años, 5 años. Entonces nosotros, ¿qué es lo que hacemos? Vamos a grabar con estas cámaras que son 360, cámaras inversivas. Vamos a grabar a esos niños yendo a la escuela, vamos ellos mandándole un saludo a la mamá. Y entonces nosotros cuando hacemos estas grabaciones, las pasamos a los lentes y cuando los participantes que están en contexto de encierro se ponen los lentes, ellos se trasladan literalmente a sus casas, ven a sus hijos y es... Entonces tienen la posibilidad de poder compartir un momento virtualmente con sus familias y lo hacemos acercarse más a sus hogares. Nosotros, ese es el clip que hacemos mentalmente en los participantes para que sepan, para que ellos entiendan que afuera hay gente que sí los está esperando.
Thank
Nosotros
you.
en Chile
Uh,
estamos ocupando lo innovador de la tecnología, llevándolo a contextos de encierro.
Thank you. That is
Okay.
such an incredible program that you are describing, and also the perfect segue for us to talk about the impact of the carceral state, not just on those who are incarcerated, but also on their families. You described really powerful moments of connection between those who are incarcerated and those who aren't, mediated by technology, and really giving people the sense that there are people outside, that you have a village outside that is waiting for you, that is supporting for you, that's supporting you. And so I want to turn to Megan to ask her to tell us more about your research on this question of the relationship between those who are incarcerated and those who and their loved ones who are outside. In particular, I'm struck by how you've written about incarceration as something that creates a secondary prison for family members. Can you share more about that notion? Why is
Yes, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. And, thank you for this great question, but also thank you for including me. This is
Disculpa, pero no te entendí muy bien. ¿De qué tengo que hablar?
sorry, it sounds like we're still working on some sound and technology, but I was just gonna say I'm learning so much already from everyone, and I know I'll be learning more, and I just really appreciate being included and being here. So thank you so much. So as we're saying, we're kind of shifting a little bit here. So I'm trained as a sociological researcher, And in sociology, we're just really interested in how institutions and systems structure people's daily lives. So I got my start in this work back in the late 1990s and early 2000s. And at the time, I was working at the Center for Visitors at San Quentin State Prison, which is in Northern California, which is where I continue to live. And I really had the privilege then of spending a lot of time with people, and most of those people were women and children who came to the prison to visit their loved ones. So I will say my work has focused more on adults, but the majority of those adults have been parents of children. So hopefully I can contribute to the conversation today in ways that we think about, family units and how incarceration does ripple out through so many different people. So during that time, when I was working up at the visiting center, I got to know people better, and I wound up conducting interviews with 50 women who were visiting their romantic partners at San Quentin. And I started to really become aware of how omnipresent the prison was in women's lives. So San Quentin, for people who may not be familiar, it's very close to San Francisco, Oakland, a lot of major urban areas. And so people can actually visit quite a lot, which is often not the case in the United States. Prisons oftentimes are quite far away. But because it was so, relatively close, some of the women I knew were able to come to visit every weekend. Some could even come to visit 2 to 4 days a week for up to 8 hours a day. So I got to really think about what it meant for women who were not incarcerated to spend so much time inside of prisons. And what they really stressed to me is, they had to abide by the prison's rules when they were inside. So as all of us who have gone inside of a prison know, this affects things like what clothes you're allowed to wear, how you move, where you can go, you're not allowed to run. Lots of times there's prohibitions on hugging or kissing too much in United States facilities. And, even how you talk, you can't be super loud, you can't use certain words, and you might not want to talk about certain topics because your conversations are really public. So that's just a lot of rules and constraints for someone to follow who hasn't been convicted of a crime and is, legally free. And then in addition, women talked to me a lot about how the prison affected their lives outside of their visits. So, they were trying to make sure they were available to talk on the phone when their loved ones would call. They needed to spend a lot of money on caring for their incarcerated loved ones. And sometimes that meant they couldn't cover their own bills or afford to do things for themselves. A lot of times people feel isolation and like they can't talk to other people, like their employers, their colleagues, or others in their lives about their connection to someone who's incarcerated. So it kind of creates these barriers to socialization. And so when I wrote about my research, I used this term you bring up of secondary prison or secondary prisonization to describe how all these details and situations build up in women's lives and create a daily existence in which non-incarcerated women are constantly thinking about, reacting to, interacting with, and being controlled by the prison. And so a lot of my work since then has focused on how harmful this is to women, children, and all people who are connected to someone who they love who's in prison.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan. And I think the topic of visitation, as we were preparing for this, will resonate with especially a lot of our volunteers because they are very used to going through that process of entering a facility and entering as in a liminal way where you are not incarcerated, and so you do have the ability to come back, but you are subject to many of those same rules and restrictions that incarcerated people have to follow. And of course, for children and families of incarcerated people, is very different to go in than for a volunteer. And I know that's also something that you talk about in your research, where there is a stigma element that is cast on the families of incarcerated people that is not necessarily the same way that our volunteers are treated. But staying on that topic of visitation, Nicole, I'd love if you can tell us more about what your organization does, and I know that part of what you do is also helping people prepare for visitation in particular. So if you can zoom into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and so nice to be here with all the other panelists. So Building Bonds Through Books is a nonprofit organization that provides books about parental incarceration to children with incarcerated parents. We provide 5 different books for all different ages, including one that comes in Spanish. And one of our books is about parental separation for those who don't quite feel ready talking about parental incarceration yet. In addition to the books that we provide, we also provide how-to guides, letter writing, and stationary things so that they can maintain these relationships with their incarcerated parents if they choose to do so. And with that being said, our how-to guides are really important because we have a how-to guide on visitation. So when my loved one was incarcerated when I was a teen, I was going to visit federal correctional facilities. So Megan mentioned San Quentin is very close, but for those who have families who are incarcerated in the federal system, that's typically a ride that's over 100 miles away from their family members. And Building Bonds Through Books is based out of Washington, D.C. And since we don't have statehood, we don't have any state prisons. And so for people who are sentenced for over a year, they're getting shipped as far away as 3,000 miles away, but as close as 130 miles away, which you can imagine is hours long drive. And as we've talked about in this panel, often people who find themselves at the intersection of the carceral system also find themselves at the intersection of poverty. And so when you don't have access to a car or public transportation to take you to these rural areas with very restrictive visitation hours, visitation that can get cut short, it can be a very large financial burden, and it can also create this massive barrier, right? And so that's what we kind of try to do to bridge that gap. And so when they do have access to visitation and kind of all of these other things, we want to make sure that they're prepared. My first time kind of going into a carceral system when I was 15 years old, I remember going through all of these metal doors and feeling very uncomfortable and very unsafe. I remember being yelled at by guards for touching my loved one outside of that like grace period of hello and goodbye. I was kind of scolded for not sitting face forward for a period of 3 hours and kind of turning to the side. I was a teenager. I didn't have a single pair of jeans that weren't ripped. I needed to get a new pair of jeans and kind of figure out like my style, all of these things I didn't know when prior to having my loved one in the carceral system. And so with our how-to guide, we kind of hope to eliminate that struggle that children and families face of just the unknown, of not knowing what that experience could be like, to prepare them, to make them more comfortable. Because when you're coming in, you want to show up for your loved one. You don't want all those other stresses to be something that is active and really persistent throughout the short amount of time that you have together. And so we hope with some level of preparation, it really helps kind of bridge that gap and create better, more comfortable spaces to allow for really good interaction when they are able to have it.
Thank you. That was such incredible work that you're doing, and it's so, I always struggle to say interesting, but harrowing is perhaps a better word, to see how, you know, people have to travel long distances, and all the more if you have you know, if people are incarcerated in the federal system. But I know that even some of our local, quote unquote local prisons and jails are far from local and very hard to reach. And I want to turn to Katrin to ask about the work of your organization. I know that Standing Up for Jamaica works both with people who are children of incarcerated people, with youth and adults who are in prison. So can you tell us more about what you do?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. All right, so Stand Up for Jamaica is a non-profit charity. We're the only non-profit charity that works inside the prison system in Jamaica. We work with juveniles who, for reasons that are what the government labels as uncontrollable, they are separated from their families and put into the system because, you know, they may be what we refer to in Jamaica as hard of hearing. They're very disobedient, wayward, or what they would classify as wayward children who don't follow rules and get into trouble in terms of fights and such in schools, in the regular school system. So they will separate them from families. Sometimes it's the families themselves that bring them to police stations, I guess to threaten them in a way, to maybe see if they will get in line, and not knowing that once they're in the system, they're in the system. There is no easy way to get them back out. We also work in the adult correctional centers, which includes female institutions. We provide a wide range of services. Mainly, though, we focus on rehabilitation through education. So we employ teachers that go into these correctional facilities that teach different subject areas. Currently, we have 6 subject areas that we teach. And we also have facilitators for persons who went into the system, but they had no formal education. So they are termed to be at the remedial level, where they're starting from scratch, basically. Our program also extends to persons outside of a high school system. Currently, our programs are mainstream education programs that fall in line with what the government offers in a regular school system. But we have partnered over the last couple of years with a college that is based in Kingston, the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, where we offer online associate degree and degree programs to persons who are incarcerated. Currently, we are on our 8th batch. This is the 8th cohort that has started in September, I believe. Because of the great expense that comes with tertiary education, of course, unfortunately, we can't admit a great number of persons into the program. So currently, each cohort has approximately 5 persons, which would include a correctional officer. And we include the correctional officer because the stigma is there, because incarcerated persons are already behind bars. So the officers will, basically hit out at them saying that, they committed crimes and they're getting education for free. So as a way of appeasing them to say you are included as well, to benefit from this free education, as well as to have someone who is able to utilize the phones and, get involved in WhatsApp groups and stuff, because incarcerated persons are not allowed to use phones or, be online outside of schooling. So that's one way that we keep the group together, because the officer would be the one liaising with the schools if they have projects or any assignments that need to be done. We also provide, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm wrapping up. We also provide psychosocial services. So it's not just about education. We tend to the mental state of persons who are incarcerated as well. And we offer gynecological services for the female youth that are incarcerated, as well as adults.
Thank you so much. That is such a wide range of services that you provide, from healthcare support to to education, and the question of stigma is certainly one that we face a lot with our students as well, and with our programs, where some of the resistance that comes from the carceral system is about why do incarcerated people have opportunities that maybe my child doesn't have, because
Right.
I'm a correctional officer and my kid cannot go to university. How come that does he need to get in trouble and get into prison to go to college? So and I think we are we're reaching the end of our time for the panel. I want to make sure we have time for Q&A, and please please start putting your questions in the Q&A box. As a reminder, we cannot the chat is not enabled, so you need to communicate to us through the Q&A. But I want to ask a final question. We talked a lot about problems, and we talked about and challenges, and we talked about some solutions in the forms of really great programs that you all are doing. But taking a step back and thinking about the system and the systemic issues, what needs to change from a policy perspective? What reforms, what alternatives should we be implementing to reduce youth incarceration, but also to support the connection between people who are incarcerated and their families? This is really a question for any of the panelists who wants to tackle it. I know it's such an easy question that
I'm happy to chime in on the children of incarcerated parents side. I was talking with my colleagues at Building Bonds Through Books a couple of days ago, kind of about this question and this idea of like policy reform. And I was reminded by our founder, Emily Zhang, about the Bill of Rights for Children of Incarcerated Parents, which is a law that was put into place in Oregon, but also in a couple of cities. And it's a list of just a few things that children of incarcerated parents are entitled to, that they should be entitled to make sure that their wants and needs are heard. So those things are to be kept safe and informed at the time of their parents' arrest, to be heard when decisions are made about them, to be considered when decisions are made about their parent, to be well cared for in their parent's absence, to speak with, see, and touch their parent, to receive support as they face their parents' incarceration, to not be judged, blamed, or labeled because of their parents' incarceration, and to have a lifelong relationship with their parent. And kind of having these protections for children of incarcerated parents, and having more policy reform around making visitation more accessible, making sure that people are placed closer to home, prioritizing low cost, no cost phone calling to eliminate that financial barrier. All of those things are really important in making sure that we're protecting not only incarcerated people, but also their families, and making sure that they can stay connected and stay together to reduce any kind of pain and trauma that comes with experiencing that incarceration, but also to help when they are released to maintain those bonds and make sure that everybody is kept safe, and to make sure that their relationships are strong so that they can thrive when they get out.
Thank you, Nicole. It is. Yes, I think. Thank you, Nicole, and we will put the link in the chat for the Bill of Rights for the children of incarcerated parents, so everybody can look at it. And it is a comprehensive but also very simple document, because at the end of the day, what you described are things that sound simple, even though the implementation is very complicated, but they are really fundamental rights that at an intuitive level, it's easy to understand how they should be granted to all children. I'm curious if any of our panelists have thoughts about the other side of the issue. What can we do to reduce the number of young people who are incarcerated themselves from a systems perspective? Lorado, sounds like you unmuted yourself.
Thank you so much. You know, when you ask that question, especially about the system in South Africa today, it's so hard to even discuss that topic, because people who are supposed to be enforcing law, they are actually the ones who are perpetrators of crime. So I'm very shy to even respond proudly when it comes to that answer. I think for me, I will take it from the grassroots level, which I still feel like there's a huge gap between decision makers and those who are experiencing these issues. And the only thing that is currently happening in South Africa, we having our leaders who are sitting in decision making, making wrong decisions in order to benefit themselves. In South Africa, I think we are I'm not sure in terms of statistics, but we have so many organizations that are trying to address these issues. But then there's lack of collaboration. Instead of collaborating, we are competing against each other over money. We also need to understand that we are not in control of South Africa is not in control of their own system. Our system has been taken from other countries and applied in our country, which is not aligning with the citizens and the dwellers of South Africa. So we have adopted all these systems that are not aligning with, they are not benefiting us, but they are benefiting government structures. So that is the first disappointment for me. I look at how much money goes into prison and all these institute, even in the youth institute, but then the money is not being distributed in a manner that should be addressing the issues. Instead, it goes into other areas and it becomes invisible after that. So it's a really a big issue that is very concerning in our country. And I think for me, we need to wake up and start collaborating, working together in order for us to be able to actually avoid even seeing our young people and parents being in prison or incarceration. Because I still believe that once we unite as a country, there's nothing that can defeat us. The fact that we have defeated the big gorilla, which was apartheid, that nothing else can defeat us. It's a matter of us coming together, sitting on the table, and understand all parties, because we are living in a democratic country. Thank you.
Thank you. And certainly a lot that you say is specific to the context of South Africa, but I think a lot of the issues that you highlighted apply very much to the context, at least that I'm familiar with, the United States. The lack of coordination or among organizations and agencies. We're at the Petey Greene Program, we do a lot of work on coalition building and making sure that different stakeholders are talking to each other, and that we are creating wraparound support services, and that we are all working together to support the needs of incarcerated youth and their families. And as well as the issue of investments in prisons and where those investments are directed. We know that prisons and jails have and Department of Corrections have very large budgets, and not always those budgets are directed to education, to support services, which is actually something that we know has an amazing return on investment. The statistic that I always like to quote, and I will quote now as well, is that for every dollar that is invested in education, there are $5 in savings that come from breaking the cycle of incarceration, just reduced costs for the system in general. So it just makes good sense to invest in those type of programs, and it's not always what happens. But I want to give the floor to Catrian, who I think you raised your hand.
Yes, I think with the issue of reducing incarceration for children, there needs to be a shift in the focus from punishment to prevention, diversion, and rehabilitation. The Child Diversion Act of Jamaica, it basically says that, you know, we should ensure that all children who are under the age of 18 are subject to diversion screening before formal arrests are made. And as I stated before, there are times when majority of the parents in Jamaica, they don't know that if they just bring the child to the police station and say, hey, you know, they're wayward, they're giving too much trouble, I need you to quote unquote scare them, you know, not knowing that if that happens and they formally take them into a police custody site, that they are basically giving up their rights to their child, you know, and then to get them back, it is a whole lot of legal ramifications that come into play. I think also that we should be advocating more worldwide for the review of mandatory minimum sentences when children are arrested. Some sentences carry such a heavy burden in terms of the number of years that these children will spend behind bars. And if I think discretion is given to, you know, taking into account the age, their maturity, what their background is like, if they have the potential for rehabilitation, it would go a long way. As we say here, it takes a village to raise a child. So, you know, it's going to take a whole lot of advocacy and collaboration between CSOs, the government, private sector, the parents themselves. You know, it's a big task, but I'm sure that if we, you know, as you say, focus on the right things, put investment into the right things, that it can make a vast difference.
Thank you, and I love how we are seeing threads come together from different parts of the world and from the two different sides of this issue. I want to get us to respond a question from our audience. How do you see your program expanding in the next few years? And I will tweak this question to also include Megan. How do you see? What are you working on in your research? And what's the next book that's coming out? But yeah. Actually, Megan, maybe you can get us started to change pace from the programs to the research.
Sure, I'll just speak briefly because I love hearing about the programs. You know, I have been in touch recently with a lot of earlier career scholars. As I've been working since the late 90s and early 2000s, but there are some wonderful people who are out there doing work now. And we are really looking at how little has changed. So it ties into the questions we're talking about here. You know, when I got started, it was sort of like, oh, we don't have the research to demonstrate the harms of incarceration on families. Now we have a lot of beautiful research. As say, there are people who have, you know, done wonderful things since my work was originally published. And so I think a lot of us are now turning to, okay, so now we have the research to back up the policy change. Why aren't the policies changing? So that is, you know, where I personally feel committed to focusing and really trying to see what practices and policies could be improved. And I think that is a nice segue back into the programs because that is where this work really happens. So I would love to hear from the other panelists.
Great, perfect segue back into the programs. And please tell us what's next in your organization. So what programs are you working on that you think are showing particular promise?
I can jump in quickly. So something that we did the past couple of years, but we're doing this year around the holidays is we do a holiday book bundle. And so that includes one of our books, but it also includes a children's book that will be wrapped and delivered to the child of an incarcerated parent. And incarcerated parents are allowed to request these books, and they're also allowed to send in a letter to their child. So it's like a gift on behalf of their incarcerated parent if they choose to do so. And for us, that's something that is really special that we get to do around the holidays to really kind of reinforce that level of connection for children of incarcerated parents and their parents. And something that we see as really like a pinnacle of what we do. And we really just hope to kind of get more connected with incarcerated people who want to kind of connect with their children and to do this thing for their child, to really enforce that level of love and understanding and destigmatization.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go next. So firstly, what I'm currently doing now, I'm writing a book at last. I don't think I'm an author, but I'm just throwing all my ideas yeah, into paper. I'm currently a coach development manager for an organization called Waves for Change, where we use waves to strengthen the mental health of young people in order for them also to be able to deal with trauma. We use a tool that we call Take Five, and Take Five looks at when the kids arrive at the site, which is next to the beach. They get into their wetsuits, which is some of them is their first time even putting on a wetsuit, and then they will get aboard. But before even they go into the sea, they will first do what we call an icebreaker, so that they can loosen up and also land into the space, and then they will do a session around meditation. And then from that meditation, they will do what we call check-in, where they check in with each other. How are they doing? And then from there, they will be taken through like a problem-solving activity, then straight into the water. Before they go home, then they will receive a meal. So what I'm currently doing, I'm working with the Waves for Change coaches, the guys who are running the show. I'm actually assisting them because after their 2-year contract with Waves for Change, they need to exit into an employment or academic environment. So I'm mentoring them and coaching them on how they can firstly build their self-esteem, and then how do you draft a CV, and then I'm also engaging with different stakeholders where they can be able to give our coaches an opportunity to do an internship or job placement into those organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think this other panelists, please feel free to jump in. But I will. I think this is a connected to another question that we got from the audience about how do you build rapport with incarcerated and formerly incarcerated youth. We just heard about how the experience is oftentimes rooted in really traumatic experiences, and is in itself a traumatic experience, the experience of incarceration that can profoundly change someone's identity. You talked about feeling disconnected and from yourself and kind of feeling numb, and those are things that we see with the young people that we work with as well. And so it is not always easy to break through and to establish a meaningful connection, to be able to really engage people in programming. So how do you do that? How do you build that rapport?
I'd like to jump in here. As I said, I teach in the correctional facilities, and more often than not, you'll find that persons who are incarcerated, they feel, because society has stigmatized them, that being incarcerated is the end all be all. Like there's no life after incarceration. So what I usually use to, I guess, gain their trust is to share my own story with them. I let them know that being incarcerated can be just, a change in the journey. It doesn't have to be the end of the journey as most of them will think. And by sharing my own personal lived experience, they are more likely to, connect with what I have been through. They have on occasion said to me, they can't believe that I was formerly incarcerated, because usually persons who were formerly incarcerated, they're unable to get jobs, they're unable to have, meaningful livelihoods. And I use the time to encourage them that that's not the case. Whatever you put your mind to once you're incarcerated, however you use your time when you're incarcerated, that is what will make the difference. Not everyone will be able to just, bounce back from being incarcerated. But if you make use of opportunities that come your way, for instance, you're incarcerated and programs come within the prison that you can take part in, you never know how it's going to change your life. So by utilizing those experiences that I have personally had, and trying to encourage them to make use of whatever comes their way, especially if it's a case where if they were not incarcerated, they would never have done things like that. It helps to gain their trust, to boost their morale and their confidence, for them to know that there is life after prison.
Thank you. And if there are no other questions, I will take this opportunity to ask one more question before I wrap us up. We talked a lot about the different stakeholders in different communities that are involved in or affected by the incarceration of just one person. We talked about children, we talked about parents.
¿El lazo con mi organización o el lazo con a donde yo trabajo, con las personas con las que trabajo?
Oh.
Bueno, mi rol es ser un mensajero creíble. Siento que nosotros, que somos las personas que hemos vivido la experiencia y hemos tenido esta historia detrás, somos como los mensajeros creíbles, y que de alguna manera vamos a cambiar la estrategia que va a ayudar a las personas privadas de libertad a reinsertarse en la sociedad, como también vamos a ayudar en la seguridad del país. Nosotros somos, aquí en Chile es muy poca la reinserción. Aquí en Chile nadie conoce lo que es una reinserción. Y entonces yo pasé de este contexto a ser activista, porque yo comprendo la necesidad y las oportunidades que necesitamos para poder reinsertarlo en la sociedad de manera digna.
Thank you.
No sé qué más decir, amigo.
Yeah.
¿Algo más la pregunta?
Thank you. That is, I think it goes very much in the same direction as well.
Quiero decir algo pequeño, que igual me quiero disculpar por esto, pero decir que yo llevo 2 años afuera al medio libre, y se me ha hecho muy difícil tener un computador o estas dinámicas. En Chile yo trabajo en una organización, pero no todos los días. Una organización que igual estoy muy agradecido, pero yo también necesito tener mis trabajos porque tengo una familia, necesito trabajo y pido disculpas porque me cuesta mucho a mí el tema de las reuniones y los correos y pido disculpas por mi inquietud y lo movido que sí.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No apologies necessary. We are all struggling and adapting with technology every day. And I actually think what you said about being a credible messenger ties very well with what Katrian was saying. Having that example of being able to create a very meaningful life for yourself after being incarcerated as a young person is perhaps the best way to connect with those young people who are incarcerated. And I'll go back to my my last question, and then we'll say goodbye. But we talked about all different stakeholders. We talked about correctional officers who also have, children who sometimes are struggling to get those same educational opportunities that incarcerated people are. We talked about the incarcerated people, their families. The one element that we didn't talk about are the guardians of the children of incarcerated parents. How do they fit into this mix? What's their role, and how can they impact the experience of, I imagine, both the parent who is incarcerated and the child?
Yeah, I think the role of guardians is massively important for children of incarcerated parents. There was a study done by Dr. Bahia Muhammad and Dr. Brittany Gatewood that looked at the resiliency of children of incarcerated parents, and they found that children of incarcerated parents, despite what has been said about them, that they are more likely to go into the carceral system, they're actually incredibly resilient. And that is because of relationships that they have with other people and those protective factors that they have that make them into confident people in spite of difficult situations. And so, right, guardians can provide that to their children, and that is what we hope for all guardians to provide for their child, regardless of the situation. And so when they have a guardian there to help support them and process their feelings, make them feel safe in an environment that feels very unsafe, that's crucial for children of incarcerated parents. And so something like we always have to do is we always have to ask permission of the guardian when sending things to children. And it's crucial for us to get their buy-in so that not only does the child feel safe, but the guardian feels safe with sharing that information with their child. And so it's important to have that guardian to connect and make that relationship, because oftentimes they are potentially still with the incarcerated parent, or if they're not, there might be some kind of strain as to why they wouldn't want a relationship with that person and their child that they have together. And so it is really important that the guardian plays this role to help still kind of facilitate connection if it's safe and it's possible, and to kind of make sure that connection is really important. And something that we do personally to help is that we provide one of our how-to guides on how to read our books with your child. So to help them process their feelings, to answer the questions that they have to the best of their ability, because it is a really difficult conversation. How do you even broach that conversation of why is my parent incarcerated? What happened? All of these questions that just feel very confusing, especially to children who are very young, but also to teens. And so just being open and being considerate and understanding that they're children and they're processing and they're going to ask a lot of questions. But it's crucial that we provide, that guardians can provide that level of support to make sure that they're very resilient and they feel safe and secure in that situation.
And on that positive note, I think we can call it a wrap. I will put the link to the Putcomer Center and the Petey Greene Program in the chat, and I encourage all of the other panelists while I'm talking to please link your work, your organization in the chat, so people can look you up and continue to stay connected with the incredible work that you all are doing. But thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you especially to our panelists, as well as to our valiant interpreter Ishmael, who from behind the scenes was able to coordinate Franco's participation as well. It was great chatting with you all, and I think we got such a much more nuanced understanding of what happens to young people while they are incarcerated, what happens to the young people when they are outside and they have a parent who is incarcerated, and how those two realities are different but interconnected. This was one of our long series of webinars that we have a few every year. So please check out our justice education series at the Petey Greene Program. This was the last webinar of 2025, but we have many more coming in 2026, and I hope to see you all there again. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Chiara.
Thank you.